The great hall of the Galactic Council shone with lights from 1,000 worlds. Delegates from 12 species sat in their floating chairs, arranged in a massive circle. Today was a day of celebration. Today marked 300 years since the purging of Earth. Ambassador Velketh of the Sithrani Dominion rose from his seat. His scales were dark blue, almost black, and his eyes glowed with cold pride. The Sithrani were tall and powerful. They had led the war against humanity. They considered it their greatest achievement. Fellow members of the council, Velketh began, his voice filling the chamber. 3 centuries ago, our ancestors faced a terrible threat. A young species called humans had discovered faster than light travel. They were spreading across the stars like a disease. They were violent. They were unpredictable. They bred too fast and fought too hard. He paused and looked around the room. Every delegate listened carefully. Our ancestors made a difficult choice. They formed a coalition. 12 species united for one purpose. They traveled to the human home system and ended the threat forever. Earth burned. Their colonies burned. Every human settlement was turned to glass and ash. Velketh raised his clawed hand in triumph. And because of their wisdom, we have enjoyed 300 years of peace. The humans are gone. The galaxy is safe. The delegates applauded. Most of them, anyway. In the back rows, a few remained silent. Councillor Ithari of the Queleth species watched the celebration with tired eyes. He was old, even by Queleth standards. His gray skin was wrinkled, and his forearms trembled slightly. He had given speeches like this many times. He had praised the purging many times. But lately, something felt wrong, a feeling he could not name. After the ceremony, Ithari walked slowly through the archives. The Queleth were the keepers of galactic history. They recorded everything. They remembered everything. It was their sacred duty. A young Queleth ran up to him. Her name was Narration, and she worked as a junior archivist. Her eyes were wide with excitement and fear. "Councillor Ithari," she said, keeping her voice low. "I need to show you something." "What is it, child?" "I found something strange in the deep space sensor logs. Something that should not exist." Ithari followed her to a small room filled with screens and data terminals. Narration pulled up a display showing patterns of light and energy. "Look at these readings," she said. "They come from the dead zone, the area where human space used to be. For the past 50 years, there have been strange signals. Ghost signatures. The technicians call them. They say it is just old echoes. Sensor decay. But I studied them more carefully." She pointed at the screen. "These patterns match human warp signatures. Exactly. Not echoes. New signals. Recent signals." Ithari felt a cold sensation spread through his body. "That is impossible. The humans are extinct. That is what everyone says. But the data does not lie, Counselor. Something is out there. Something that moves like human ships." Ithari stared at the screen for a long time. "Have you told anyone else about this?" "I tried. My superiors said I was imagining things. They told me to delete the files and forget about it." "Did you delete them?" Narration shook her head. "No. I made copies. I knew something was wrong." Ithari placed one of his hands on her shoulder. "You did the right thing. Keep this secret for now. I will look into it." But Ithari never got the chance to investigate. 3 days later, news arrived that shook the council to its core. A Sithrani patrol fleet had disappeared near the dead zone. 12 warships with over 4,000 crew members. Gone without a trace. The Dominion sent search parties. What they found made no sense. The ships were still there, floating in the darkness of space, completely intact. No damage, no signs of battle. But every single crew member was missing. Not dead, just gone, vanished like smoke in the wind. And on the hull of the lead ship, someone had carved words in an ancient Earth language. The translators worked for hours to decode the message. When they finally understood it, fear spread through the military command like fire. The message said, "Remember, Commander Sithax was the officer who led the search party. He stood on the bridge of the empty patrol ship and felt something he had never felt before. True fear. The Sithrani were warriors. They did not fear anyone. But standing in that silent ship, surrounded by the ghosts of his missing soldiers, Sithax felt like a small creature in a very dark forest. "What could do this?" asked one of his officers. "What could take 4,000 warriors without firing a single shot?" Sithax had no answer. The council met in secret. No celebration this time. Only worried faces and urgent whispers. "This is clearly a hoax," said Ambassador Velketh. But his voice lacked its usual confidence. "Some pirate group trying to scare us. Perhaps rebels from the outer colonies. Pirates do not carve messages in dead languages," said Counselor Ithari. "Pirates do not make 4,000 soldiers disappear without a trace." "Then what do you suggest?" Velketh demanded. Ithari looked at Nyrathine, who sat silently in the corner. She gave him a small nod. "I suggest," Ithari said slowly, "that we consider a possibility we have ignored for 300 years. I suggest that maybe, just maybe, we did not kill all the humans." The room exploded with angry voices. Impossible. Ridiculous. The purging was complete. Every human world was destroyed. Every human ship was hunted down. But Nyrathine stepped forward. She raised her hand, and the voices quieted. "There was a ship," she said. "A generation ship called the Exodus. Our records show it launched from Earth 2 months before the purging began. A secret mission, 50,000 humans sent to find a new home beyond known space. We searched for that ship," said Velketh. "We searched for decades. It was never found." "That is correct," Nyrathine replied. "It was never found. Not by us, anyway." Silence filled the chamber. A terrible silence, filled with the weight of 300 years of certainty, crumbling to dust. And somewhere, at the edge of known space, far beyond the light of any charted star, something massive began to move. Energy built up in the darkness. Engines that had slept for 3 centuries roared back to life. The humans were coming home. Commander Sithax stood on the bridge of his warship, the Dominion's Wrath. Through the viewing window, he could see the empty patrol ships floating in the darkness. His investigation team had searched every room, every corridor, every storage compartment. They found nothing. No blood. No bodies. No signs of struggle. The crew had simply vanished. "Commander," said his second officer, "we have completed the final scan. There is no trace of the missing personnel anywhere in this sector." Sithax nodded slowly. He was a soldier. He believed in facts and evidence. But the facts here made no sense at all. "What about the message on the hull?" he asked. "Have the language experts finished their analysis?" "Yes, Commander. The language is called English. It was the primary language of Earth. The word carved into the hull means, 'remember' in their tongue." Remember. Such a simple word. Such a terrible warning. Sithax thought about the stories his grandfather had told him. Stories about the war against humanity. The old warrior had described humans as small, weak creatures with soft skin and short lives. Easy to kill. Easy to burn. The purging had been quick and efficient. The humans had fought back, of course. They always fought back. But they were too young as a species. Too primitive. They never stood a chance. So why did this simple word fill Sithax with such dread? "Return to Nexus Prime," he ordered. "The council needs to hear my report in person." The journey back took 6 days. During that time, Sithax barely slept. Every time he closed his eyes, he saw the empty ships. He heard the silence of 4,000 missing voices. He dreamed of shadows moving in the darkness between stars. When he arrived at Nexus Prime, he found the council in chaos. More ships had disappeared. A cargo fleet near the border. A research station in the outer sectors. A military outpost that guarded the edge of the dead zone. All of them gone. All of them left the same way. Intact ships, missing crews, messages carved in ancient English. "We are under attack," declared Counselor Ithari at the emergency meeting. Someone or something is targeting our people. We cannot ignore this any longer. Ambassador Velketh slammed his fist on the table. We are not under attack. This is psychological warfare. Tricks and illusions designed to frighten us. The humans are dead. They have been dead for 300 years. Then who is doing this? Asked a delegate from the Valorian Combine. The Valorians were a quiet species. They rarely spoke at council meetings, but now their representative, a tall figure with silver skin, looked directly at Velketh. Who else would write messages in human language? Who else would target Sithrani ships first? Who else would want us to remember? Velketh had no answer. In the archives, Nirathine worked through the night. She had become obsessed with finding the truth. She dug through old records, classified files, and forgotten databases. Piece by piece, she built a picture that terrified her. The Exodus had been real. The secret human ship had carried 50,000 people into the unknown. It was designed to travel for generations, keeping its passengers alive in frozen sleep until they found a new home. The ship had launched just weeks before the purging began. The council knew about it. They had tried to find it. For 50 years after the purging, Sithrani hunter fleets searched the galaxy for any sign of the Exodus. They found nothing. Eventually, they decided the ship must have failed. Perhaps it crashed into an asteroid. Perhaps its engines exploded. Perhaps the humans simply died in the cold emptiness of space. They stopped looking. They declared humanity officially extinct. They celebrated their victory, but Nirathine found something else in the old records. Something that had been buried and forgotten. 70 years after the purging, a deep space probe detected a faint signal. It came from beyond the edge of known space, from a region so distant that no one had ever explored it. The signal lasted only a few seconds. It was weak and broken. But the probe's analysis was clear. The signal was human. The officer who received this report had marked it as sensor error and filed it away. No further investigation was made. No one wanted to believe that humans might still exist, so they simply pretended the signal never happened. Nirathine stared at the old report. Her hands trembled. They survived. She whispered to herself. They found somewhere to hide. And they have been out there all this time. Watching. Waiting. Preparing. She ran to find Counselor Ithari. She needed to share this discovery. But when she reached his office, she found chaos. Alarms were blaring. Officers were running through the corridors. Something had happened. What is going on? She asked a passing guard. Sensor stations at the frontier, the guard said, his face pale with fear. They detected something massive. Energy readings like nothing we have ever seen. Ships. Hundreds of ships. Nirathine felt her heart stop. Where? Sector 77. The edge of known space. They are just sitting there, not moving, not attacking, just waiting. She pushed through the crowds until she reached the main command center. Giant screens showed the sensor data from the frontier. She saw the shapes of ships arranged in perfect formation. Their design was strange, unlike anything in the galactic database. But there was something familiar about them. Something that echoed the old human vessels from 300 years ago. Get me visual, ordered General Krath, the Sithrani military commander. I want to see what we are dealing with. The screens flickered. Then the image cleared. Nirathine gasped. The ships were enormous. Warships of incredible size, bristling with weapons and armor. They were dark and angular, built for war. At the center of the formation floated the largest vessel she had ever seen, a dreadnought that dwarfed even the biggest Dominion battleships. On its hull, painted in letters that stretched for hundreds of meters, was a single word: Lazarus. That is a human name, Nirathine said, her voice barely a whisper. Lazarus, from their ancient stories. It means one who rises from the dead. General Krath turned to face the council members who had gathered in the command center. His scales had turned pale, and his eyes were wide. They are hailing us, he said. All frequencies, every language in the galactic database. They want us to hear them. Put it through, ordered Counselor Ithari. The screens changed. A human face appeared. A woman with gray hair and cold eyes. She wore a military uniform, covered in medals and symbols. Behind her stood officers and soldiers, all of them human, all of them watching the camera with expressions of stone. "This is Fleet Admiral Elena Vasquez of the Terran Remnant Navy," the woman said. Her voice was calm and steady. "We have a message for the species of the Galactic Council." She paused. The silence stretched for an eternity. "You believed you burned us from existence. You celebrated our deaths. You were wrong." Her eyes seemed to look directly at every person watching. "We are humanity. We do not forget. We do not forgive. And we do not die quietly." The transmission ended. The screens went dark. And in the command center of Nexus Prime, no one spoke, no one moved, no one breathed. The humans had returned. The council chamber erupted into chaos after Admiral Vasquez's message ended. Delegates shouted at each other. Some demanded immediate surrender. Others called for war. The Sithrani pounded the tables and roared about defending their honor. The Quelith pleaded for calm and reason. Ambassador Velketh pushed his way to the center podium. "Silence," he bellowed. "This changes nothing. Yes, some humans survived. Yes, they have returned. But look at their numbers. 300 ships? The Dominion alone has 10,000 warships. The combined fleet of the Council numbers over 50,000. We will crush these survivors like we crushed their ancestors." "You are a fool," said the Valorian delegate. His silver face showed no emotion, but his words cut like knives. "You do not understand what you are looking at. Those humans spent 300 years preparing for this moment. Every day, every year, every generation focused on one goal. Do you think they would return if they could not win?" Velketh laughed, but it sounded hollow. "They are primitives. They always were. Superior numbers will destroy them." "Then why did 4,000 of your soldiers vanish without a fight?" the Valorian asked. "Why could they take your crews and leave your ships untouched? What does that tell you about their capabilities?" The ambassador had no answer. On the frontier, the human fleet remained still. They made no aggressive moves. They simply waited. And that waiting was more terrifying than any attack. General Krath gathered the Sithrani military commanders for a war council. Maps and tactical displays covered every surface. Officers studied the human formation, looking for weaknesses. "We strike first," Krath declared. "We send a fast attack fleet, 100 ships. We hit them hard before they can react. We show them that the Dominion does not fear ghosts." Commander Sithax stood in the back of the room. He had said nothing during the planning. He kept thinking about the empty patrol ships, the vanished crews, the single word carved into metal, "Remember." "General," Sithax said carefully, "perhaps we should try to communicate first. Learn what they want. Understand their intentions." Krath turned to glare at him. "Communicate? With the creatures who threaten our empire?" "The humans declared war the moment they entered our space. We will answer in the only language they understand. Fire and death." The attack fleet launched within hours. 100 Dominion warships, the pride of the Sithrani military. They were fast, heavily armed, and crewed by the best soldiers in the galaxy. They had never lost a battle. They would not survive this one. The human fleet detected the approaching ships long before they arrived. Admiral Vasquez stood on the bridge of the Lazarus, watching the tactical display. Her officers reported the enemy numbers and formation. 100 ships, said her tactical officer. "Standard Sithrani attack pattern. They will reach weapon range in 15 minutes. Vasquez nodded slowly. "They have not changed at all. 300 years, and they still use the same tactics, the same arrogance." "Orders, Admiral?" Vasquez looked at the display for a long moment. 300 years of preparation. 300 years of anger and grief and determination. Generations born and raised with a single purpose. "Show them what we have become," she said quietly. "Leave no survivors." The battle lasted 11 minutes. The Sithrani attack fleet dropped out of warp in perfect formation. They powered up their weapons. They prepared to unleash the fury of the Dominion. They never fired a single shot. The human weapons struck first. Beams of energy that moved faster than any known technology. Missiles that appeared from nowhere and struck with impossible accuracy. The Sithrani shields, famous throughout the galaxy for their strength, collapsed in seconds. Ship after ship exploded. Some tried to retreat. The humans cut them down. Some tried to surrender. The humans showed no mercy. In 11 minutes, 100 Dominion warships became 100 clouds of burning debris. The recording of the battle reached Nexus Prime 3 hours later. The Council watched in horrified silence as their unbeatable fleet was erased from existence. The human ships had moved with perfect coordination, every vessel knowing exactly where to be and when to fire. It was not a battle, it was an execution. "Impossible," whispered General Krath. "Our shields, our weapons, nothing worked against them." Counselor Ithari stood slowly. His old body trembled, but his voice was steady. "For 300 years, we told ourselves we were superior. We told ourselves the humans were primitive savages who deserved to die. We told ourselves the purging was justified." He looked around the chamber at the pale, frightened faces. "We were wrong about everything." On the Lazarus, Admiral Vasquez watched the debris field, where the Sithrani fleet had been. Her face showed no joy, no satisfaction, only cold determination. "Admiral," said her communications officer, "we are receiving a message from an unexpected source. It comes from the Valorian Combine. They want to speak privately." Vasquez raised an eyebrow. "The Valorians? I thought they were part of the Council." "They are, but our intelligence suggests they opposed the purging 300 years ago. They were outvoted. They have been waiting ever since." Vasquez considered this. "Put them through." The Valorian representative appeared on screen. The same silver-skinned figure who had argued against attacking the humans. "Admiral Vasquez," the Valorian said. "My name is Counselor Veth. I speak for those who always believed the purging was wrong. We have waited 3 centuries for this moment." "Waited for what?" Vasquez asked. "For a chance to make things right. We cannot undo what was done to your people. But we can help you end those who committed the crime. The Sithrani and their allies. The architects of genocide." Vasquez studied the alien face on her screen. "Why should I trust you? Your species stood by while 8 billion humans were murdered." "We were weak," Veth admitted. "We were afraid, but we acted in secret. We sabotaged the search for the Exodus. We made sure your ancestors escaped. Without our help, the Sithrani would have found your ship and destroyed it." Vasquez said nothing for a long moment. She had read the old records. She knew that someone had hidden the Exodus's trail. Someone had protected her ancestors during those critical first years. "What do you want in return?" she finally asked. "Only peace," said Veth. "And a seat at the table when this war ends. The old council is corrupt. It was built on lies and murder. Help us tear it down. Help us build something better." Vasquez looked at her officers. They had all lost family in the purging. Great-grandparents, ancestors, entire bloodlines erased. The anger in them was real and deep, but so was the hope. Hope for something beyond revenge. "We will talk," Vasquez said. "But I make no promises." The humans did not return just to trade one set of masters for another. "Whatever happens next, we will be equals. Not servants, not subjects. Equals." Veth bowed his head. "That is all we ask." The transmission ended. Vasquez turned to face her crew. "Spread the word to all ships," she commanded. "We have allies. The galaxy is not as united against us as they thought. This changes everything." And in the dark spaces between stars, the human fleet began to move. Not to attack blindly. Not to burn worlds as their worlds had burned. But to fight a smarter war. A war of truth and justice. The reckoning had begun. The war spread across the galaxy like wildfire. But it was not the war anyone expected. The humans did not attack cities. They did not bomb planets. They did not kill civilians. Instead, they struck military targets with surgical precision. Command centers, weapons factories, fleet bases. They appeared from nowhere, destroyed their targets, and vanished before reinforcements could arrive. And everywhere they went, they left something behind. Truth. Admiral Vasquez had spent decades preparing for this moment. Her intelligence officers had gathered evidence from across the galaxy. Secret recordings of council meetings. Military orders signed by Sithrani generals. Death tolls counted down to the last child. The humans compiled everything into a single, devastating broadcast. They called it the testimony. The testimony showed the truth of the purging. Not the glorious victory the council had celebrated for 3 centuries. The reality. Ships firing on refugee vessels trying to escape Earth. Soldiers executing prisoners who had surrendered. Entire colonies poisoned with biological weapons before the orbital strikes began. 8 billion humans. Men, women, children, elderly and newborn, scientists and artists, farmers and teachers. All of them erased because the council feared what humanity might become. The testimony spread through every communication network in the galaxy. The council tried to block it. They failed. The humans had spent centuries learning how to break through any firewall, any censorship, any barrier. Within weeks, every species in the galaxy had seen the truth. Riots erupted on dozens of worlds. Citizens who had grown up believing the purging was justified now saw the evidence with their own eyes. They saw the faces of dying humans. They heard the screams of burning children. They watched their heroes revealed as murderers. The Sithrani tried to maintain order. They sent soldiers to crush the protests. But the soldiers had seen the testimony too. Many refused to fire on their own people. Some threw down their weapons and joined the crowds. The Dominion was tearing itself apart from within. On Nexus Prime, Ambassador Velketh faced the council for the last time. His scales had lost their shine. His eyes were hollow. The pride that once defined him had crumbled to dust. "We must negotiate," he said, his voice barely a whisper. "We must find a way to end this war, before there is nothing left." "Negotiate?" shouted a delegate from one of the smaller species. "Your ancestors committed genocide. You celebrated the murder of billions. Why should the humans negotiate with you?" "Because the alternative is extinction," Velketh replied. "Do you think they will stop with the Sithrani? Do you think any of us are innocent? We all benefited from the purging. We all built our empires on human bones." The chamber fell silent. He was right, and they knew it. Far from the political chaos, Nirathine made her choice. She had seen enough. The lies, the cover-ups, the centuries of proud celebration over the graves of billions. She could not serve the council anymore. She contacted the human fleet and offered her help. She brought everything she knew: archive codes, military secrets, hidden files that the council thought were destroyed. Admiral Vasquez welcomed her aboard the Lazarus personally. "You risk much by coming here," Vasquez said, studying the young Quilith. "Your own people will call you a traitor." "My people betrayed themselves long ago," Nirathine replied. "They chose comfortable lies over difficult truth. I will not make the same choice." Vasquez nodded slowly. "Then you are welcome among us. We have learned that species matters less than character. Good people can come from anywhere." Nirathine became a bridge between humans and the aliens who wanted peace. She helped translate not just languages, but cultures. She explained human ways to confused aliens. She explained alien ways to suspicious humans. Slowly, trust began to build. Meanwhile, Commander Sithax fought his final battle. His ship was ambushed near the border of Dominion space. Human vessels surrounded him. His weapons were disabled. His engines were dead. He stood on his bridge and waited for death. Instead, he was captured. Human soldiers boarded his ship and took him prisoner. They treated him well. No torture. No abuse. Just calm. Professional soldiers doing their duty. They brought him to the Lazarus. To Admiral Vasquez herself, Sithax expected hatred. He expected rage. He expected to see a monster who wanted nothing but revenge. Instead, he saw a tired old woman with sad eyes. "Do you know why I brought you here?" Vasquez asked. "To execute me," Sithax replied. "To make an example." "No." Vasquez stood and walked toward a door. "Come with me. I want to show you something." She led him through the corridors of the massive ship. They passed hundreds of humans, soldiers, engineers, families, children running and playing in the hallways, a whole civilization living inside a fleet of ships. 300 years, Vasquez said as they walked. "That is how long my people have lived in exile. Entire generations born and died in the darkness between stars. My grandmother was born on this ship. My mother was born on this ship. I was born on this ship. None of us have ever seen a sun." They reached a great hall. Sithax stopped and stared. The walls were covered with names. Millions of names, carved into metal panels that stretched from floor to ceiling. The hall extended further than he could see, curving away into the distance. 8 billion names, Vasquez said quietly. Every human who died in the purging. We found records. We searched archives. We tracked down every name we could. It took us a century to carve them all. Sithax walked slowly into the hall. The names surrounded him. Names of people he had never known. People who had lived and loved and dreamed and hoped. People who were erased because they were different. "This is what you took from us," Vasquez said. "This is why we returned." Sithax felt something break inside him. All his life, he had been taught that the purging was necessary. That humans were dangerous animals who needed to be put down. That his ancestors were heroes. Now he stood in the Hall of the Dead and saw the truth. "I am sorry," he whispered. The words felt weak, useless. But they were all he had. Vasquez looked at him for a long moment. Sorry does not bring them back. Sorry does not heal 3 centuries of pain. But it is a start. She turned away. "I am sending you back to your people. Tell them what you saw here. Tell them the humans do not want extinction. We want justice. We want truth. And we want peace. Real peace, built on honesty instead of lies." "They will not listen," Sithax said. "Some will not. But others might. And that is enough." Sithax was released. He returned to Dominion space and told everyone what he had seen. The Hall of Names. The families on the human ships. The admiral who chose mercy over revenge. Some called him a traitor, some called him a liar, but others listened. Others began to wonder if there was another way. And in the corridors of power on Nexus Prime, the Dominion leadership finally collapsed. Generals turned against politicians. Politicians turned against each other. The government that had ruled for centuries crumbled in weeks. The war was almost over, but the hardest choice was still to come. The Sithrani Dominion surrendered on a cold morning in space. Their fleet, once the terror of the galaxy, floated in broken pieces around their home world. Their government had collapsed. Their people were divided. Their empire was finished. Admiral Vasquez received the surrender aboard the Lazarus. The new Sithrani leaders, a mix of military officers and civilian reformers, knelt before her and offered their weapons. It was the greatest humiliation their species had ever suffered, but it was not enough for some. In the command center of the human fleet, a heated debate raged. Officers and civilians gathered to decide the fate of their enemies. The question was simple. What should humanity do with the power they now held? Captain Marcus Cole, commander of the battleship Phoenix, spoke for the hardliners. He was a large man with scars on his face and fire in his eyes. His entire family line had been traced back to the purging. Thousands of his ancestors had died. "They showed us no mercy," Cole said, his voice hard as steel. 8 billion of our people, burned alive, poisoned, shot while they begged for their lives. Children, Admiral. They killed our children. He pointed at the tactical display showing the Sithrani homeworld. We have the weapons. We have the fleet. We can do to them exactly what they did to us. Glass their planet. Destroy their colonies. Make them feel what we felt. Many in the room nodded. The desire for revenge was strong. It had been passed down through generations. For 300 years, human children had grown up hearing stories of the purging. They had visited the Hall of Names. They had memorized the faces of their dead ancestors. Revenge would be so easy, so satisfying. Admiral Vasquez listened to it all. She let everyone speak. The angry, the hurt, the ones who wanted blood, and the ones who wanted peace. She heard every voice. When the room finally fell silent, she stood. I understand your anger, she said. I share it. Every day of my life, I have carried the weight of what was done to us. Every night, I dream of burning worlds and screaming voices. I know what they took from us. She paused and looked around the room. But I also know what we took from ourselves when we fled into exile. We took our humanity, our mercy, our capacity to be more than our pain. For 300 years, we have been defined by what they did to us. Every decision, every plan, every dream has been shaped by the purging. She walked to the viewing window and looked out at the stars. If we destroy them, we become them. We prove that they were right to fear us. We show the galaxy that humans are exactly the monsters they always claimed we were. And our children will grow up in a universe that hates and fears them, just as we did. Captain Cole stepped forward. So, we just forgive them? We pretend it never happened? No. Vasquez turned to face him. We never forgive. We never forget. The Hall of Names will stand forever. The truth of what happened will be taught to every child in the galaxy, but there is a difference between remembering and repeating, between justice and revenge. She returned to the center of the room. We did not spend 300 years in the darkness just to become what we hated. We are better than that. We have to be better than that. Because if we are not, then what was the point of surviving at all? The debate continued for hours. Voices rose and fell. Some wept. Some shouted. But in the end, when the vote was called, the decision was clear. Humanity would not commit genocide. 3 days later, Admiral Vasquez addressed the galaxy. Every world, every station, every ship received her broadcast. Billions of beings watched as the human leader stood before the cameras and delivered her message. To the species of the galaxy, she began. The war is over. The Sithrani Dominion has fallen. The old council is dissolved. Humanity stands victorious. She paused, and her eyes seemed to look directly at every viewer. We could destroy you. We could glass your worlds as you glassed ours. We have the weapons. We have the cause. 300 years of pain gives us every justification. Another pause. The galaxy held its breath. But we will not. We did not return to become what we hate. We returned to build something new. Something better. A galaxy where species are judged by their actions, not their biology. Where truth matters more than power. Where the strong protect the weak instead of preying on them. She straightened her shoulders. We offer peace. Not the peace of surrender. Not the peace of domination. Real peace. We will help rebuild the worlds damaged by this war. We will share our technology with those who need it. We will work together to create a new order where what happened to us can never happen again. Her voice hardened. But know this. We will be watching. We will remember. And if anyone ever tries to commit genocide again, against any species, anywhere in the galaxy, they will face the full wrath of humanity. We will not let another purging happen. Not to us. Not to anyone. The broadcast ended. 5 years later, the new Galactic Compact was established. Humanity took its seat at the table alongside the other species. Not as conquerors. Not as victims. As equals. Narration became one of the first alien ambassadors to the restored Earth. The planet was still scarred from the purging. Great patches of glass covered the continents where cities had once stood. But new settlements were growing. Humans were finally coming home. She walked through the streets of New Geneva, the first city built on Earth since the Purging. Human children played in the parks. Quel'Th traders sold goods in the marketplace. Valorian engineers helped construct new buildings. It was not perfect. Old hatreds still simmered. Some humans could not forgive. Some aliens could not accept their guilt. But it was a start. Commander Sithax, now a civilian, worked in the reconstruction efforts. He helped build memorials on former human colony worlds. He taught young Sithrani the truth about the Purging. It was his way of paying a debt that could never truly be repaid. One evening, he stood with Narration on a hill overlooking New Geneva. The sun was setting, painting the sky in shades of orange and gold. The first sunset he had ever watched on Earth. "Do you think it will last?" he asked. "This peace?" Narration considered the question. "I do not know. Peace is fragile. It requires constant work. But look at what has been accomplished. Humans and aliens working together, cities rising from ashes, children growing up without hatred." She looked at him. "Is it not worth trying?" Sithax nodded slowly. "Yes, it is worth trying." On the other side of the city, Admiral Elena Vasquez stood before a memorial. It was smaller than the Hall of Names on the Lazarus, but it served the same purpose. Remembering the dead, honoring their sacrifice. She was old now. Her hair was completely white. Her body was tired. But her eyes still held the same determination they always had. A young officer approached her. "Admiral, the ceremony is about to begin. They are waiting for you." Vasquez nodded. Today was the anniversary of the return. The day humanity had emerged from exile and shocked the galaxy. It was now a holiday celebrated across multiple worlds. She touched the memorial one last time. Her fingers traced the names carved into the stone. "We made it," she whispered. "We came home, and we did it without becoming monsters." She turned and walked toward the ceremony. Behind her, the sun continued to set. The first stars appeared in the darkening sky. Stars that had once seemed so far away. Stars that had hidden humanity's secret for 300 years. The humans had returned, not as conquerors, not as victims, as something more, as hope. And in the great hall of the new Galactic Compact, carved above the entrance for all to see, were the words that would define a new era. "We remember. And now, we begin again. Os."